Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Talks About Nothing. And I have here a very special guest, Paolo Rinaldi. Hello, Paolo.
Hello, Michael. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and nice to meet you. Paolo, the first question is all the time the same for every guest. Why did you decide to accept invitation to talk about nothing from someone whom you don't know at all?
I mean, why not? No, I mean, it's something interesting, something maybe a bit unusual. So, I mean, typically just had this kind of Zoom or Teams meetings about work 5 days a week. So, I mean, why not try to make something about something different once?
You know, I'm really happy about it because your wife was here already twice,
Mm.
and I really value the opportunity to meet people whom I don't know. But all of them, at the end, it's so fascinating that we spent 40 minutes talking about anything what was nothing was planned, and we feel so good after that. So I hope that we will do the same. And of course, I mentioned your wife, and uh, Olga is a Czech lady. You are Italian, and I just learned that she's not speaking Italian so much. So how did you came together?
Oh, well, it's just mutual friends, actually. We met through mutual friends, and yeah, we speak typically English. And yeah, I mean, it was uh, the chance me English, had a nice dinner meeting, and yeah, one thing led to the another, as they
Uh,
say.
you speak about eating something together. There is quite a big difference between Italian cuisine and the Czech cuisine. And you spent a lot of time in Czech Republic already. How many years you are in Czech?
Oh, it's actually, I think it's about 11 years now.
Wow, wow. So you cannot go along and not try Czech meat, Czech food. Do you prefer Italian or Czech?
Well, that's an easy question, Italian.
No
Yeah, but
dumplings.
no, but I mean, it's also because I grew up in Rome, so it's a very different type of let's say kitchen or cooking that I'm used to. So it's more Mediterranean, bit lighter. Let's say also used to hotter climates. So
And
it's
what I have
different.
learned that a lot of Italian men are very good in the kitchen. Is it the same for you? Are you the one who take over?
Uh, the last years, not really, to be honest. But generally, before, yes, I mean, I quite tend to like also cooking because it's a bit something different. It's a bit relaxing, and I just like to do something a bit different, try, experiment some, follow some recipes that I've not tried before, just to see how it comes. So,
Uh,
I mean, but the last years with work and everything, I've been a bit, yeah, dropping a bit the cooking implements, let's say.
I have heard from your wife that you are expert on a printing machines. Is it correct?
Paper machines.
Paper machines, sorry, paper machines. Uh, have you ever seen a machine called unprinter, which means it's not a machine which generally prints something on a paper, but
Mhm.
erase the already printed paper and made a new one.
Ah, no, no, this one never heard about it.
Epson produce it. I will send you the link after. Generally,
Okay, that's interesting.
it was an idea invented in UK on some universities, something like 15 years ago. And it was a small
Mhm.
machine like the printer on the table. And they did it through vibration and heat, whatever, something like that applied. And at the end was clean, a clean paper. Then I think the patent was bought by Epson, and they created quite a large machine, an office, but big like the office wall generally. And it's your own new paper production machine from the old one, and it's safe. And that's a question to you. Can you believe that it saves 98% of water?
Oh, it might be compared to a new one. I can easily believe it. Yes,
it's a huge number. What do you like so much? Because I have learned that you are traveling all around the globe because you are the expert for this type of business. And what makes you so fascinating about paper production?
I mean, I think it's more or less it's a process, because it's a very complicated process. Because I mean, at university I didn't study paper at all. Not like many colleagues who have. In some country there is a special, even Czech Republic, there is a special paper making education and everything. No, I was just simple mechanical engineer, and one of my first jobs happened to be in a paper mill. It was very fascinating for me because there was mechanical topic, there was electric, there was a steam, there was chemicals, vacuum, all kind of interesting engineering topics, let's say, put all together. And for me, it has been fascinating to get into this world, let's say, understand a bit the machines, these weird terms, and then, yeah, piece by piece, understanding how the single parts work, then doing projects, and yeah, then one thing led to the another. Now I'm, without being an expert of the technology itself, I picked up quite a lot over the years. So now it's interesting, and and the good thing is that also going from different countries, different projects, there is always something interesting. So it's always challenging. It's always something different, different people, and I like it.
And we are speaking in the time when sustainability is a big issue. And of course, there is a lot of invention in a paper production. So they can, I think a few years ago, there was introduced from the fallen leaves. I think it was a Ukrainian or Poland startup. In Africa, they make it from elephant excrements,
tropics,
and
yes.
they do it from a lot of things. But that's a question for you. The process, when I take it in general, it's all the time the same or very similar, or there are big differences between when I produce from standard wood, I will say, wood product, or from the leaves. Are there so big differences or not?
I mean, the product is different. Let's say usually what you make, what kind of paper you prepare. So there might be some changes more linked to what products you want to make, but essentially, let's say you start with your raw material. You have water, you have some chemicals, some steam, just to put it, because there is some chemical process which requires controlled temperatures. Then this is kind of cooking, which might take longer or shorter time, depending if you're using, I don't know, I mean, if you're using wood, it's different than if you're using, I don't know, textiles, for example. Then you basically wash out the chemicals, reuse them in the cycle. This is also quite interesting that a lot of the chemicals that you put are not put every time new, but they are just recycled in the process. So this is very interesting. And then after, when you have the fibers, because basically the idea is just to separate the fibers from this raw material. After that, it's pretty much standard. Then you just try to, after adding all these chemicals and water, you need to wash them out and get the fibers to get a bit together. So the paper machine itself, which just gets the fibers on one end and the paper on the other one, is pretty much the same. What is changing is the preparation before.
Because we have started, or I started with a question about cooking, and there is a paper which can be eaten. This is the rice paper, and I'm sure there are more than just the rice paper. But for the rice paper, very famous, not only in Vietnam or in Asia, but currently it's even here. And I had a question related to Italy generally. I never expected that Italy is a region where rice is being grown. I know there is a risotto, of course, but I never known that there is a rice, and I think it's the only country in Europe where it's so strong. Or
It might be. It might be. There are some regions in Italy that are really typical, but I mean, it's also historical reasons because that's quite interesting. That during the just before the Second World War, when there was fascism in Italy, there was some kind of pushback against pasta because pasta was seen as coming from US, and that's why there was also a focus to give subsidies or just to push people to use and develop this kind of rice production, which was already typical in some regions because of the conditions. So this is one interesting reason why there is still quite big production of rice in Italy.
This is interesting. I never expected that it booms. I have heard something about the pasta just recently, and it was exactly linked to the war and American and Nazis and so on. But I never connected that. What is interesting for me, you and me, we are in the age when we have lived in the times where there has been no computers or not no computers at home, no mobile phones, nothing like that. And we both remember the times when the first computer came and there was a big announcement. Finally, we will be paperless. There will be no paper in the offices and so on. When I enter an office today, I will say there is double or triple so much paper than before. But of course, there was newspapers, for example. So not so many are being printed and so on. So from your perspective of a man who grew up in the business generally, who traveled the world, who see it, will you say that there is a decrease of the paper production itself, or you see a stable development in, let's say, some slow rise of the production?
I mean, I would say here also it's very much depending on the products. So newspaper is been going down dramatically, of course, last years. The office paper, the white paper, also is steadily declining. Not so much, but it is in decline. What keeps growing is basically the packaging. So just in the Amazon boxes or envelopes or what they have. And also, I mean, but it's also linked to the economy. For example, the paper bags, paper sacks for concrete. You know, these big, heavy, sturdy bags. And this one is very much linked to construction. So, I mean, it tends to have a lot of growth also when there is some parts like Middle East where there is a lot of conflicts. But when things get a bit back to normal, then there is a big boom of construction. So this is also following these kind of trends. And the packaging, I mean, just following the economy, and this e-commerce was a big boom. Now it's steadily increasing, some percentage every year. And I mean, I would say it's shifting, let's say. It's shifting a lot also within Europe. Markets are going up and down, but generally it's on the growth. Going back to the offices, it's also interesting that I don't know if it was people that just used to be more careful in the past about how much paper they were using because they had to do it by hand and just to be careful. And after this boom, people are have been a bit more careless. I would say that, yeah, let's print it and just use it like that. And to be fair, it's also increased the recycling rate. And this also maybe in people's mind is that, okay, yes, I use the paper, but then it will be recycled, goes to make new paper.
I think what you just described is very similar to the photography. You remember the times when there was a film inside a camera, not a digital memory. And there has been the counter, and we have been very careful when we come close to, I think, 24 was there, or 30, whatever. And very careful. Today, everybody has thousands and thousands of pictures, which we will never look through. I make an analytics in the past related to Industry 5.0, and there was 85% to 90% we will never look at the picture again. And the same is for the storage in a big data centers. But you know, you forget one big and growing paper category, permanently growing, toilet paper.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Correct.
I was so surprised about the numbers. Unbelievable, the growth. And nobody speaks about it, you know, it's crazy. But it is so.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. This one with the lockdown, the COVID, and everything, it got special industry status as necessary goods, which it is. But yeah, it's growing, growing. I mean, then there is a lot of also effort there to make it more sustainable. But yeah, that's always a growing market.
You know, there was a song in the 80s, Russian, let's say, funny song, where one man says, for example, I bring you toilet paper. And you know, there was a time where there was no toilet paper. It was shortage. Even in Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, where I grow, we use newspapers and so on. So it was not a pleasant time. But in this song, this one man says, I bring you toilet paper. It's a great news. And the horse says, wow. And then he said, unfortunately, it's already used. And the horse says, wow. But he says, but you can use it from the other side. And once again, the Russian win everything. So it was very popular in my country, not so popular in Russia at the time. But just you remind me on that. You know, you spend a lot of time in factories. You spend a lot of time traveling. You spend a lot of time, of course, with your family, with your son, with your wife. But what is your way of relaxing? What is this other side Paolo used to recharge and enjoy the time?
Sorry, I lost you for a moment.
Okay, so I will ask again.
What is... You were asking how I'm relaxing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. This one I got. Yeah. I mean, let's say if I'm traveling every week and Monday till Friday and everything, relaxing sometimes takes the form of just staying home and doing nothing. But I mean, doing nothing means reading a book, maybe playing with my son, watching some TV or some videos, some YouTube. So it's just a bit to take things a bit slow, let's say. During the week, it's everything quite hectic, and this is more my way to relax and to get a bit back into the normal rhythm of life, let's say.
Do you have any special kind of books which you prefer? For example, I love to read science fiction books, but I love, for example, Japanese and poetry and haiku and similar stuff. So what about you?
Yeah, I like science fiction. Actually, I grew up when I was a kid with Isaac Asimov and all the generation of science fiction. Now I'm not so much now involved, but at the time it was really the number one. And then I moved to military history, quite a lot of books, non-fiction, and now mystery and this kind of thing. So I think and also like very much books on the history of science. So especially, I don't know, the nuclear physicist from beginning of the last centuries. This was very interesting.
I just discovered a book just before we started because I'm writing the Industry 5.0 newsletter and just discovered one book. I will send a link to you. It's 1888, but this man in the US generally predicted even payment cards and a lot of other things. I never heard his name before, but it's quite interesting. And you know, in Czech, Karel Čapek and Robot and so on. So there is a lot of great writers in Czech Republic. Unfortunately, not all has been translated. Ondřej Neff, for example, which is a very famous author, living one. His father was as well. He was a writer, but Andrei Neff is living. He was here in the podcast as well. And his books are unbelievable. Unbelievable. So you will love it, I'm sure, because if you like Isaac Asimov, this will speaks to you. And it's quite interesting how these people can imagine the world. You know, I was all the time asking if Jules Verne and all the others has predicted so much from which you will say they have to travel the time. My question all the time is the same. Why none, not a single one of them mentioned internet? Because you cannot visit today's world without facing internet in any form. So that's a question.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, they were very inventive. They came up with a lot of ideas, what if, following their thinking. They got a lot right, something not, something they could not expect. But it's interesting. I really find it interesting to take it this, I mean, you know, this kind of periods, science fiction starts with one idea and just takes it to the extreme consequence, what it means and what it could mean for the society.
You are, let's call it so, you are responsible for production of paper. But what do you like more, the empty paper or the filled one?
I mean, I prefer the written one.
I prefer the empty one, you know, because I am the one who made the first step. And I'm writing for 36 years. I'm writing already. Okay. So this is why I simply love the empty page, because I can fill it. If speaking about it, do you like more questions or the answers?
Generally questions.
That we are on the same boat. But you mentioned before AI, you mentioned that we are living in the times where there is a lot of things being changed very fast, rapidly, and so on. Is there, in your field of expertise and business, AI more tool, or does it already begun to rule the business?
I mean, I would say at the moment, more a tool because, I mean, the paper industry is also quite traditional, so the changes come somehow slow. There is a push towards automation. There's been already several years. There is a lot of data. The process is quite complicated. There is a lot of variables that have an influence. There has been attempt already to put it all somehow together into some AI model, but so far not really very consistent results. But probably the direction is that one. Also because this is more, let's say, sociological point. The paper production is a 24/7 factory business. And you need people that are able and willing to work on a shift base, also in the night. Also the weekends, changing completely their way of living. And with these later generations, it has been generally, I mean, they got it from, from several countries. It's quite difficult to find people who are willing to work in this kind of environment. Exactly because it's different. It means that they are making compromise on their life, their social life, how it's structured. That, I mean, you need to work the nights, so you sleep in the days, so you are somehow off. Sometimes you're working through the weekends. That's quite interesting. I find, because it's really, I mean, it's also leading this push to, okay, is there a way to have a fully automatic machine producing paper? So, I mean, this will be the direction, but it will still take some time. And the AI can help, will be needed to help, because it's a complex process that can happen problems. And if you have person there, they can evaluate and think what to do. But if not, if the guy is available, the expert is available only tomorrow morning, it's middle of the night, you need to do something.
We have spoken about the general changes which are in the paper industry itself. So there is inclination, declination, whatever, but it's somehow stable in some way. Do you think that this stability is caused by the fact that generally a paper industry, how to say it, does not produce there exist places which are called, for example, graveyards of new cars. The automotive produce cars which are not intended to be sold. They are just produced because of the bank and investors and so on and so on. In a paper industry, in fact, you mentioned that there is the recycling process which is being considered that I think 8 to 12 times you can recycle paper because of the length of the
fibers. Yes.
Of the fibers. I was all the time, I was asking the other companies, how do you know how many times is the paper coming into recycling? And they said, we have the analytical tools, but if you receive a 20 tons truck, you don't use every single kilo through this analytics, I'm sure. But there can be done a lot of with paper. I think the heat compression technology, which at the end, not only a paper, but a lot of different materials can process and make something completely different out of it. I think it's a great idea. But somehow it feels like paper industry does not need to plan carefully because they just run. Is this right or wrong? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, there is I think several aspects. One aspect is that it's very expensive to build a plant producing paper. The equipment is very expensive, so especially some of the most, let's say, complicated types of paper, they really need investments of hundreds of millions of euros just to get them, just to have the equipment itself. Then you need to build the knowledge of the people, the operators. So it's very difficult for any newcomer to really come in. So it's just these established companies that have the capacity, the production means, and they are able to somehow keep the market. Then for some kind of paper, it's a question of volumes, because for example, this packaging paper, if it's recycled paper, the value of the roll of paper is not so high, let's say, compared to other types of paper. And then you have to go on the volumes, because then big volumes, and then you can make really good revenues. So from this point of view, it's, let's say, there is a bit of resistance to change, let's say, and also to disturb something which is working. I mean, which doesn't mean that there are not innovations coming, but it's a lot going on small steps. It's not very common that there is a big breakthrough technology coming and changing everything.
I have here something which may be interesting for you. It's construction material made of Tetra Pak.
Okay. Yeah.
Heat compression technology. It's made by this company. It's a Czech company. Lizatech. Generally, they produce in Moravia. They produce the machinery to make it. And as I said, there is a lot of things which can be done. Unfortunately, I see as a biggest issue or bottleneck, I see the waste industry itself generally, because the waste industry never streamlined the process because they wait all the time for the highest price. So, and there are times where the paper makers are speaking about the fact that they have no material, but this is exactly the time when the waste industry has big piles of paper which they are just waiting for, not to sell it, not for the highest price. And that's, I think, is one of the topic which needs to be narrowed, because I am a logistician. I do logistics for 35 years. So I do specialize myself in a global supply chain efficiency. Even cardboard packaging can be reusable if you do it the right way in a right process. So these are why the waste industry doesn't like me. I don't like them as well, so it's fine. But I think this can be one of the changes which can be implemented. So to streamline the process, I like the Epson machine. It costs €2,000 for 2 million or a little bit more euro. I do understand, and to get the return of investment of €2 million is not every day in the office, but they can produce, I think, I'm not sure, 6,000 pages of paper a day.
Okay.
Process it as well, which is, if you say just it's not too much comparing to your business. On the other hand,
but for an office?
For an office, it's a lot of paper. And the great idea behind it, or the cost savings is not about the paper itself. It's about all the logistic around. You don't need warehouses, you don't need trucking, you don't need a lot of things, plus the water saving. That's very interesting benefit. What is interesting, and you mentioned one, I think you mentioned one's textile, which is in some way similar. I just entered a factory where they are producing textile for the car and buses for the seats. And they are considering to really run a machine which can in some way produce similar way like paper is produced, to use the textile parts to produce something similar. So it can be very interesting.
Yes, I know one of the main suppliers of equipment in the paper industry. I mean, at least one, I don't know, probably the others as well. They have a special cooking digester that can take all kind of waste, textiles, rest of wood, whatever, just put it there. Of course, needs to be set up just to take out the fibers and then making paper. So it's you need, of course, to have the raw material. I mean, probably you need to tune it to, I mean, not to mix it, completely different mixes and everything, but it's a commercial technology. And there's also an additional source of fibers that can be used.
And that's exactly the point. What is missing from my point of view is that the paper industry does not speak to steel industry and agriculture industry and so on. They play in their own small Sandkisten, and they do not speak to each other. Why? They use pallets, they use trucks, they use a lot of same things. They just don't speak to each other. And this is why I'm so happy Industry 5.0 is connecting them, putting them together in one big pool, and then we have it. Why not to use it? And they are great alternatives. And I'm sure this is one of the directions which we should go. Because without knowing you, I will not know that we can do this step, that this technology already exists, but it exists. So why not to connect it to someone else who need and connect them together? That's so great. And without talks about nothing, we will not meet. It was not my aim to meet you as a paper production expert, no, or the husband. What is great, and you have one very special thing, because usually if a wife or a husband have talked about nothing, the counterpart does not want to join. So you are the first one in 257 or 7 episodes when a wife and a husband joined. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
To be honest, we have mothers and daughters, and we have fathers and sons, but we never, if I'm not wrong, but I think I'm right, we never had wife and husband, because in this relationship all the time, one is the most courageous, and the other says, okay, I don't need it, and so on. But you both are great, so you did it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's interesting. It's
I thank you, because I just spoke to Olga 2 hours ago, and it was again great discussion when we spoke about you and Fabio. Sorry, growing in three language environment, which is very interesting and I'm sure for many. I know he's just 6, so he will not, or maybe he will, be the next one in the talks about nothing. And it will be even more interesting because I'm sure we will speak Czech, English, he will mix maybe Italian in it, which I will not understand, and so on. But it can be interesting. But coming back to Italy, Italy is the only country in Europe which already adopted Industry 5.0 on the level of government. And last year in September, if I'm not wrong, they announced so-called, and sorry for the pronunciation, Transizione 5.0 program based on Industry 5.0 and allocated 12 billion euro. So if your clients, it must be Italian company or your company, if you would like to get funding from EU, just name it Industry 5.0 and you will get it. I am the founder, so you will get it. It's quite interesting. The amount is interesting. It goes 12 billion euro. Nobody in the world did it. The highest in 2023 was 1.5 billion in Canada, and that was associated with space industry. So, but it can be quite interesting. If anybody has a questions, of course, I'm ready to answer. Just name it Industry 5.0. It's enough. It's enough. It's quite interesting. I'm trying to get in touch with the members of the government generally who push it through. It's quite interesting. Everywhere, including the university, they start to talk Industry 5.0. They don't do it let's say the most accurate way because they use the European Commission fake, but it does not mean it will not work with the original. And that's quite interesting. We can influence a lot of things, Paolo, but we cannot influence the time of Zoom because we have only 2 minutes left. And I have to tell you something because you are the first Italian who can call himself ONICHEMOS, which means from Czech talk about nothing. So members who did it are called ONICHEMOS. We write it in Czech, but you can write it in English with CH. And you are one. So you are the first one in Italy, or the first one Italian ONICHEMOS. So congratulations to you. And
happy to be
I hope it was not the last time when we spoke together. So I already invited Olga to visit me in Pilsen. So if you will come together with Fabio, will be great. I think we have a lot to talk because there is a lot of things which can change. A lot of related to sustainability, a lot of related to your business and expertise, to Olga's business and expertise. So all of you are welcome. I will not cook Italian, but I will cook some small dish for you here as a surprise.
Okay.
But it was a really great time to talk to you. I'm happy we did. Have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free. And dear listeners, please be human as Paolo showed that we can be, no matter where we have been born or where we live. We just can be human. And I'm happy that you are one. So thanks a lot and enjoy the Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you, Mika.
See you soon.
Enjoy the Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.